Hello people, and welcome back to part 29 of Palaven, our vanilla Cities Skylines build. Hope you're having a wonderful day. And we're watching some rather amazing cable car action here. We installed this on the live stream, thank you for all that stopped by, do appreciate the support as always. And we did some nice little jobs, just kind of flying around and getting some repeated conifer patterns in here, which we'll run over as well in a minute, but the highlight of the stream was certainly the cable cars. These things are getting like crazy amounts of use. Let's grab this one over here, 526, and obviously kind of the same at each end. But yeah, they're all migrating over from this underground metro stop, which runs, of course, across the rest of Palaven. And yeah, it's pretty unreal. Ignore the merging through the tram. But they're using the walkways, which is always satisfying. And then, once we've got the metro in here too, and the monorail, this will essentially become a little kind of mini transport hub. Switching between 4 different methods that all take you in kind of varying different directions. So I expect this plaza to become super busy at some point. Also over here we've gone with some nice little repeated green belt stuff that's going to kind of circle some parts of the downtown. And I included like a little outdoor eating garden for the burger bite. And then got some nice little trees here as well. This was a big fan favourite, kind of the silhouettes of the conifers up against the light pollution here. Certainly just very, very nice. Appreciate everyone's support on the stream anyway. However, we do need to run over some announcements. It is at this point that Palaven will no longer be Cities Skylines Vanilla. It will now become Cities Skylines Vanilla Assets because we are going to now start using Find It and Plop the Growables. So because I'm being super customizable in what high density is going to come into this area during this episode, I don't have the time to sit and wait for all these to level up. So it's just a simple matter of, there's no workshop assets in here. These are all DLC and vanilla buildings. Now I'm not going to be using anything from the workshop. So hopefully that doesn't annoy too many of you. But yeah, it's now vanilla assets as opposed to vanilla because Find It and Plop the Growables are now active on the save. So anyway, let's dive in, shall we? We're going to be working on some residential, and I've decided that I am going to switch the residential from over this side to over here. And we'll do some nice residential blocks and designs between the high-rise and as we move into the transport hub, which will reside within this block right here. And we're going to save this area for some nightlife, which will partner really nicely with the tourist parkland, which will sit on this bit of land, the peninsula, I suppose. Yeah, so nightlife here, and we'll do some residential today. So let's get started, shall we? So the first thing we need to rearrange here is going to be the road network, because we now know that this arterial road flowing through the downtown is going to be a tram road. And of course we'll factor trams into the residential and eventually into the transport hub as well, so they'll have a straight run all the way through. So let's come back and start taking back some of this grid. Now this is the advantage of running with a kind of a downtown road network frame as opposed to a set structure. This one come through, make sure we're on our snapping. I'll have that come through to about there. And then we can leave ourselves a little reminder that we do want some tram-only road action to kind of come into this area. So we can do that there. And then we'll bring our cycle network down into the transport hub and the residential too. And of course, we want to make sure that our cycle network continues as we planned in. So we're leaving one tile there. Super. And very similar to what we've done with the other builds in Palaven, we'll kind of do some slight road against road action here. I'll kind of give an example of what I'm talking about. Let's fly over to, so I kind of got a full graveyard here, and a touch of abandonment. So this right here, you know how we have the forestry right up against the road? Obviously this is very industrial vibes, but we can just see, it just gives us a nice little change in texture. So there's no grass between the roads, so it looks very concrete, very high dense. And this is what we're aiming for with the high density as well. So this is what we'll kind of work with today, under this premise, and get some funky little designs in. So before we start placing any residential, we need to slightly rework the edge of our high-rise crawl here because I'm not super happy with some of the orientations. There's a couple of odd-looking assets at the back here too. And then I think we'll probably take these IT cluster. So we know we've got an IT cluster zone in here. I can just now expand it into the area I know it's going to finish at. And then we can come back through with some office, although we have very little residential demand industrial demand right now. It will eventually kind of come in. And then likewise with the tram station too. I'm going to move this so it's orientated here. And then I think we're also going to flip our servicing services office around here as well. So we can kind of come in from this angle. Make sure that we've not ruined the skyline by doing that. Kind of like this wall right up against in the downtown. This is a great looking asset, especially with all these little ramps and grassy bits on it. And then we've got some more room to come through. It's like, yeah, I need to make this one historical again, don't I? That's fine. There's some more detail in here as well. Kind of come the time lapse. But again, we'll check our angles and make sure that we've not ruined that skyline that we spent so long working on. Wonderful. Okay. Also added the television station in here as well, and it fitted perfectly into this grid that was already here. Yeah, happy with that. I think there are a few things as satisfying in the world than finding a grid that perfectly fits an asset. So in terms of our high density residential, this isn't going to be the Green City stuff. We'll have the Green City stuff over by the Central Park here. But we still want some fairly tall buildings, right? So there are some really tall ones, kind of like these guys right here. But yeah, they're not super amazing. A lot of them are kind of levels 3, 4, and 5 and above. I think this one's alright. This will certainly fit into the kind of the high-rise vibe that we're going for here. But there are some of them. There's a really ugly one. Is it this one? Yeah, it kind of has this like weird lip on the front of it. It's not great. I do prefer the lower level high density. But we'll use some of these anyway. But just so we kind of know what we're dealing with. Yeah, these are all kind of level 4s and 5s and whatnot. Okay, so I want to pull in some parkland first of all. I'm a real big fan of the basketball courts paired with high density residential, and they do have like a really distinct vibe about them. So I think we're going to start getting a few of these in here, and then let's start working across our kind of little tenements here and decide what we want in. So I think we'll start out with a touch of repeated pattern action. Start getting some high rises in here to merge in, and we can start to crawl down as we approach this highway. Of course, we've got some room here as well for a path to come through, so increasing the walkability of the city is always a good idea. We'll kind of keep these ones coming in, so after kind of the chunkier 4x4s here, keep some of them coming in. Again, you know, you can achieve this all by still on vanilla. You don't have to be playing with find it and plot the Growables here. But it certainly does make it easier, especially if you're being like super specific with the zoning. I'm sure that we all know it's something I'm a fan of. But yeah, having tried to test this, waiting for buildings to come in, it just, yeah, it wasn't viable. Took me a long time. Okay, so going through some pathways as well. And once these start getting some use, you know, we'll start to see these kind of high rises coming together, and we want to keep checking the skyline as well, of course. Maybe not a fan of these two side by side, so let's take one of them out. It is about time we had a big residential expansion. Yeah, so it's this one. I hate this one. Not using that. Let's go for some maybe. Okay, yeah, we can see that it's adding to the skyline now too. And the noise pollution is actually alright for them here. Science Centre isn't too loud. Of course, we'll kind of keep them away from the tram depot right here. But yeah, we'll hook this back in as well, don't worry. We won't just leave it like that. Also, this can just be a regular road now. I'm going to pull the cycle network down through this way anyway. Okay, then just a couple of little tenement blocks in here to round out this area. Switching the angle of them too. So as we kind of come to the parkier bit of town, you know, kind of more land and open space between, I'm just going to start introducing a couple of little repeated residential patterns that are going to kind of identify this area as residential, if you like. We'll kind of run over what I'm talking about when I'm going over this. So of course let's find a nice little residential asset that we like. Maybe do like a tower block orientated one here. Start taking it through there too. And then just to keep this idea going. So this is something I do quite a lot in my cities. Is running with a repeated pattern that just allows you to kind of identify an area. Very much how we are within kind of the financial areas. We're using park fencing and conifers to have multiple repeated patterns about the area. We're going to do something similar here today as well. So I'm going to start running my fences in up alongside the asset. We can bring them down here. I'm just going to go with the park fence for this one. But of course you can use any design that you like. We'll have one through here as well. And then we can come back through with those dirt paths. Doesn't have to be a dirt path, of course. You can use any one that you like. And then we can come through with some little trees and bushes and whatnot. Maybe got some conifers in here and Palaven pine as well, of course. It wouldn't be complete without that. And just small blotches, you know, so just reminding ourselves that we're in Palaven, right? And then maybe grab a couple of small bushes just to kind of come along. Now, even though we're doing high density, I guess gridded residential, because we are kind of playing with grids here, it doesn't all have to be packed in, you know. Just little avenues like this through the buildings really make a world of difference in the long run. And there's so many different combinations of fence and path and park life assets you can do. We can maybe even come through with a park life cafe here. Yeah, and just take out that back fence and I'm happy with that one to go away and keep the ones on the side. And then there's even opportunities for just a touch of bush to come through. And flesh them all out and smaller tree in the corner perhaps. And just something as simple as that really helps make a difference because the high density residential can get very ugly very quickly. So I think taking your time and waiting for those specific assets to come in really makes a world of difference to it. Probably repeating myself a lot here. I don't want to factor in a public library though. We don't have a library within the downtown. Let's introduce a public library onto the main road. And let's start getting some tram action as well. Let's give ourselves a real temporary kind of tram box here so they have a turnaround point where they can come in and out of the area. Of course, we'll refine this when we actually come to make the transport hub, of course. And then we can upgrade these over here. And then we'll grab our tram line. And then let's also start working some high density assets in. You know, we're not just going to use Find It right now. We will do some zoning too, specifically for the high density residential. Okay. So I know the assets that I want to sit here. It's kind of the lower level ones, but it still looks really good. So I think I'm just going to run through here with a couple of different ones, save some space to link through onto the green belt path that runs into the downtown. Of course, that will allow them a little bit faster access. Just like a couple of little repeated apartment blocks on the same street here. And then we can round it out with just like a little corner shop right next to the metro station here. We'll also get these metro stations active now that people have a reason to come over to this area, of course. And we can bring a path down here. And then come through with a touch of the old faithful. Little park fences that just appear from time to time. Actually squeeze right down the side here, which is nice. And again, just a touch of design behind there to help kind of blend our metro station in. Be happy with that. We're getting some nice high-rise views from this bridge now too. And we'll just make sure that we're not kind of destroying the effort we put into having that organic looking high-rise from a couple of episodes ago. It was last episode, wasn't it? Yeah, I think it was. Okay. So we've got some high density commercial in. Let's now continue this pattern here. And we can almost mimic the residential pattern now. Of course we will organically zone a couple of spots of high density residential down here too. See how we're kind of looking from the main avenue into the downtown here now also. These power lines will disappear eventually. Start having a look at some other park assets. Maybe let's go for... the carousel isn't something we use overly often. We've also got a small dog park here too. Tropical garden maybe. Probably not the Japanese garden. Not quite the vibe we're after. But I think definitely like a small playground on the street corner here. Although I think we'll move it opposite the... kind of have a couple of them. Repeat the asset pattern in front of these little high densities here. Okay, and we'll continue kind of mooching through some apartment blocks here, see what we fancy. And again, I'm going to come through with my pattern, and I know that I've got some tiles free for some other little details that are going to appear in this area. Make it a little bit wooded. No, the paths aren't saving the Sims that much time, it's only cutting around the corner. But it just helps to add a little bit of distance without leaving that green space between, like we have here. And we can bring this down now as well. Let's take our fence away, and we'll bring it back through. Just up to here. This path does run alongside the ring road and kind of into here, which will tidy up in today's detailed time lapse as well, and it brings some character to this green belt. And then we flow into our elevated walkways, which we did on the stream, which are actually getting some use now, which is really nice. I see people congregating around here using the elevated walkway, and this does flow through the downtown and now into the tram square here, which is nice. It's very nice. Okay, so we're seeing that kind of crawling height theme idea still being implemented, right? That is what we are after. So maybe we have a couple of these. Yeah, we're slightly taller as we're moving into the higher density area here. And then we'll come through with some slightly different shapes. And then I've got a bit of room, again, surprisingly enough, for some trees. And I think we'll stick fairly small while we're near these kind of tower block looking guys. Otherwise we'll start to kind of merge into the asset itself and get all different kinds of ugliness doing that. Okay. So we're using a nice little mix of repeated patterns here. So we're now seeing some of our organically zoned residential coming into play. We've got to bear in mind that we're going to be facing into the transport hub here. So we're going to have to maintain that aesthetic, and I think this tower block really breaks the pattern. Big fan of these guys. Yeah. These 4x4s, I think we'll go with these. And then we can have some really nice kind of repeated flats nearby to the transport hub. And of course factored into the cycle network as well. Which someone is now using, which is wonderful. Where's he going to go? Wonderful, he's heading over there. Nice. Nice. I guess we can now take out these power lines here, at least these ones. And let's get some metro flowing around, shall we? Because we do have these underground stops. So one here. One into there. Oh, I did delete this one. But we will add it back in, of course. Yeah. So I kind of like this asset as well. Getting a lot of people using this walking path too. Now we're heading on to the metro to see how many car journeys this is saving now. This little ring metro. And while these high density residentials are a little bit more noise resistant, we will just kind of come through with a little repeated tree pattern either side of this pathway, which will also kind of line the pathway, which will give it a little more decoration. But it will also just shelter these high density guys from any possible noise pollution issues that we get arising up. There's a nice little walkway down there now too. God, these power lines are rancid. I might see if I can move them out of the way for the cinematics, obviously. Yeah, have we got any kind of free zonings around here? Let's maybe include some park life assets around the metro station. I'm not a huge fan of just leaving them unattended. Maybe even just like a rest room. And then a couple of little smaller trees around it. Let's come through with some fencing also. Because again, I think the metro stations, they can get a little bit funky if they're just by themselves. So we'll repeat this pattern here as well. Kind of bring it in. We'll box the power line in for right now and just kind of include some different tree assets in and around this area. Bring something smaller in. And then just little undergrowth around them. And come through with some bushes. I'm a big fan of kind of the boxed in trees in the downtown vibe at the minute. You know, so rather than just leaving that kind of open and bare, kind of blended in with the restroom and the fences, little trees as well. Getting tons of people coming down this path, which is nice. Super. Wonderful. High density residential. High density commercial, even. It's not my favourite. But I guess it has to be in the downtime, right? Let's see how many people we've got on this tram line. Okay, yeah, so it's starting to pick up some use now. Again, we'll just want to keep our eye on these and make sure that they're not getting too big. Nothing too gnarly. So yeah, I don't mind this one with the glass front, that's fine. This one's okay too. Yeah, I'm happy with all these. There's a nice little gradient and touch of variation in them. We can just see them poking up behind those residentials too. Just thinking, do we want to carry on the separated road pattern here? So if we were to bring this down, we can potentially come all the way along here. Yeah, okay, I think we'll go with that. Gives a nice border to this main road as well. It's also going to keep the arterial, you know, kind of free of traffic because there's no one stopping and starting on this road because there's no actual zoning on it. They're just using it to get from A to B. And this one through as well. And then we can hook through there nicely. And we've also got some opportunity to come through and kind of use some Palaven pines. Maybe something even a little bit smaller, kind of between the road. How would a lone Palaven pine look actually on the corner of the road? It's okay, I suppose. It is a little bit It's a little bit out of place. I've decided I don't want the high density here either. Let's move to low density while we're next to the library. I think that'll be okay. See which exit these guys are taking. I'm getting some people using this little slip road as well, which is nice now. I don't think we're going to have a separate highway or ring road junction here. Yeah, because they can enter and exit via this road. We'll probably do one in this space here. We can get some nice detailed paths coming under the highway too. Wonderful. Okay, yeah, so I think I'll switch these out for something a little smaller. And kind of something to complement the transport hub. But certainly a repeated pattern on the arterial road is what I'm aiming for. So we'll see what we find. Yeah, so I think those smaller ones are a little more sensible. And then we might come through behind them. We just want to find something that's ever so slightly taller than them. This 3x4 is pretty nice as well. I'm really looking forward to doing the high density, or well, the downtown area with the green city stuff. That will be quite nice to look at. Yeah, okay. Now that we're using these more kind of authentic looking ones, like the tower blocks are much more my vibe. These ones are really standing out for me. So we might switch these out in the detailed time lapse. I'm not entirely sure yet. I guess we'll just have to wait and see. Let's also reach through into this block now. Get some use on this metro as well, which is good. Few people coming in down to use it now. Oh, there we go. Hello. Welcome to Palaven. So the vast majority of them are walking, which is grand. That's really good. And again, you know, we've got lots of awkward empty space around here now, but it's a perfect time to come through and repeat some of our kind of residential tree and fence designs that are making their way around this area. And we can bring them down as well. Of course, you can switch these out for concrete paths if you want, but you know, Palaven's vibe is very kind of grassy and lush. So I'm going to try and stick with that palette for the inner city as well. Get some smaller trees in too. Don't want to kind of spam the same one over and over again. And then we can do like a little tree triangle here and maybe feature something that we wouldn't usually. I think the bamboos are a little too much of a contrast. So maybe just go for a cheeky little Palaven pine in here with a couple of smaller trees at the base. And of course, some bushes on the edge of that fence as well. I really like the pathway, especially these like balconies on the back of this residential asset. Starting to get like almost like a view down Main Street now, you know. It's a shame we don't have the 6-lane trams in the vanilla game. Or 6-lane tram roads, I should clarify, not 6-lane trams. So interestingly enough, no one actually cares about this bicycle path. They're all using this right-hand side one. Which is fine, as long as they're cycling, I don't care. But we can tidy up that design now. You know how it's going to function. Quite keen to see some of these other metros get some love. Yeah, so plenty of people coming out of the cable car stop now and switching straight to metro, which is good. Either switching to metro or walking. Which is... It's nice to see like busy downtown streets, you know. People walking. Yeah, I'm a fan of that. I'm a fan. Yeah, there's so many people using the cable car to cross the river as well, which takes pressure off the ring road, of course, which is always an added bonus. Yeah, okay. Let's have a look at some residential nighttime spice, shall we? We haven't checked this thing out yet. Let's come through to the old nighttime and see how we're looking. Yeah, okay. We're keeping that gradual climb. I'm really liking this kind of aesthetic view here as well. This might be the thumbnail. It might be. I guess we'll have to see. Yeah, with the Borealis in here too. See how we're looking from this side of the highway. Want to make sure we're good from all angles, of course. Yeah, we're getting a really dense, packed in downtown vibe now. Especially with these little tiers in height, you know. Really contributes. A much more organic looking skyline, I think. Fantastic. Fantastic. So of course this will take our population up a number of quite a few thousand. How far are we from the next milestone? Yeah, we should probably achieve that with the residential we placed today. And that does give us some really cool stuff. Nuclear power plant. We can definitely do kind of a power station build. That'll be nice. Helicopters as well. Definitely get some nice helicopter stops in the green belt. Like along here. Little like private helicopters landing in the downtown. That'll be really nice. And yeah. It's going to be a nice downtown. But guys, that does feel like a good place to jump into a detailing time lapse. We are going to kind of come through these areas where we've moved assets and things now left a little more exposed, and of course detail them up so we don't have these very awkward spaces kind of in and around. And I'll also bring the downtown greenbelt over to this side too, and bring some kind of repeated tree pattern up against the highway, so it's just got something a little extra to it. And also kind of help prepare the detailing along this arterial and this road right here, ready for the transport hub, which will eventually sit within this giant empty space. Yeah, so as always, I will be right back. Okay guys, that is going to do it for today. I want to thank you all so much for watching. If you've enjoyed the video, a like below is always appreciated. Because much if you haven't enjoyed it, please feel free to leave a dislike as well. A really nice combination of the high density residential assets here, and I am really conscious of using the regular unspecified high density residential because some of the assets are a little bit rank. Find it, and Plop the Growables certainly makes it easier. For those concerned with the new mods entering into the series, don't worry, there will not be any more. They are the only two, purely because I'm super picky about what assets are coming in, and that mod saves me about 4 hours, so it's gonna stay. Anyway, yeah, check out some of the finer detailing between these big blocks of high density residential, and of course I'm sure this will make a fine addition to Palaven's skyline as we begin to crawl down towards the highway. Next episode, of course, is episode 30, so it will be a city recap between episodes 29 1 to 29, which will be fun because there's a lot happened in those episodes. And then episode 31, we'll probably move over to the nightlife pier and tourist parkland, maybe. I guess we'll see what everybody wants. Otherwise, I will shut up and I will leave it there. Well, thank you all so much for watching. And as always, enjoy the rest of your day.